Hello everyone, welcome to this video. I'm Yasushi ISHIKAWA, teaching professional for them. In this video, I'll be providing the commentary on the final game of Kishin Tournament Europe 2025, the game between CrazyJohannes and rudobou. So center CrazyJohannes is Mr. Kase Nishimoto, who is a former World Open Shogi Championship winner. And Gote rudobou is Mr. Taichi Kobayashi, who is also a former World Open Championship winner. So both strong players advanced to the final. So let's take over the game. So Sente chose static rook, Ibisha, and Gote chose Nakabisha. So Sente played silver to 4-7 position. And Gote just developing naturally. And Sente already advanced to the silver. So usually silver 4-7 shape is a passive shape, and I don't recommend at all this shape, but so it's a little different. So Sente didn't put the pawn to 2-5 yet, and didn't put the pawn to 3-6. So the silver can advance here. This is one of the good strategy. I will explain why. So the pawn push isn't played, and if the pawn push on 3-6 either isn't played, this can be a possible strategy. But just playing like this, many people play this, but you should never play this way. This is one of the worst strategy against Nakabisha, but many people play. So if you play this, you should rather advance the silver to 4-6 from 3-7, not pushing the pawn to 4-6. So please remember this. So Sente advanced the silver to 3-6, and Gote played bishop to 5-1, but the usual way is pushing this pawn here, since Sente is aiming for silver to 2-5 or 4-5. So this is a natural move, and if the silver comes here, Gote can just protect with the silver like this. So this is not a problem for Gote, but now the rook can swing over to 4-8. And in the next move, the pawn to 4-5 and the silver exchange will be severe. So now there will be silver drop to 4-3 in the next move. So this is not so a comfortable position for Gote. So there are two ways to defend, but first, if the rook comes here and just protect the force file, the bishop wants come here, and if the rook escapes here to protect this square and also keep protecting the force file, then the silver can go up here, and Gote can't prevent silver going up to 3-4. This is why Sente didn't push the pawn, the opening. So the pawn position is very important. If it stays in 2-6, the silver can advance to 2-5. This is why Sente chose this strategy. And another way to defend the force file, Gote can also defend with the gold, not allowing Sente to advance the silver or exchange the silver. So now the silver can't go up. This is a little heavy. It's not a good pawn. If the silver moves back, then the pawn will be taken. So silver can't go up anymore and also can't go back. So this silver will be completely useless. But here, again, the bishop here is very severe. If the rook protect the 3-1 square like this, then the bishop can promote. And if the rook goes back Then there are several options, and they can drop the pawn here and go up the silver and exchange and drop to 4-2. This is also possible. And sometimes this kind of attack might work. So if the minnow was already completed, then I think it's too much, but sometimes this could work. If the rook escapes here, then center tries to take the bishop. The bishop can't move since the rook will be taken. So I don't know if this is really good for Sente, but at least very dangerous for Gote. So the most natural move, pawn to 4-4, seems a little dangerous here. So Gote played bishop to 5-1 safely. And now Sente moved the rook and went up the silver. So the silver can also take, but the pawn can advance. So Gote escaped this side, this pawn. So if the silver goes to this side, then Gote can easily protect. So Sente took the silver and advanced the pawn. So this is also natural. Mm. And Gote went back the bishop to 3-3 to protect the diagonal of the bishop. And now it was an important position. Sente dropped the silver here, but maybe it was too early, and Sente should have waited one more or two more moves like this. Especially this move, go to 6-8 was very important, and Sente should have played before attacking, I think. In the actual game, Sente just dropped the silver here and protected with the rook. And the rook came back here and pushed the pawn. So Sente's moves are just natural, chasing the rook and trying to attack the bishop's head and using this bishop to 5-5. This makes sense, but this silver drop was strong in the actual game. So, for example, if the bishop was in 6-6 or 7-7, the gold was in 6-8, it was a little different, I think. If the gold was here, the gold can protect like this. And if the bishop was here, Sente can push the pawn to 7-5. So, this silver was too strong in the actual game, I think. Maybe Sente underestimated this move. And it continues. If Sente takes this silver, the rook can take this pawn. So, Sente dropped the pawn. Gote can also take the silver, but played safely like this. And Sente pushed the pawn. Sente can create a promoted silver here, but Gote's bishop can escape here, for example, trying to push this pawn. So maybe it's not very good for Sente. Just the promoted silver, Sente can't continue the attack. And in the next move, with the pawn to 4-2, the silver will also be trapped. So Sente didn't choose this move, and this is better to use the rook. And Goto went back again, the bishop. Sente pushed the pawn. So now Sente is just waiting. If Sente does this, then the gold comes here. So, it will be easily protected. So Sente is just waiting. And now Gote went back the rook to 5-4 and trying to attack from the fifth file. So this is not very bad yet for Sente, but Gote has one pawn advantage, and the pieces are seems active. So here, Gote has slight advantage since Gote has one more pawn in hand, and also the attacking pieces seems more active than Sente, but it's still a fight. Sente went back the silver and pushed the pawn. And Gote pushed the pawn. So Sente wants to do this, but after taking the silver, the pawn advances and the silver drop to 6-6 will be severe. So Sente didn't do this. Instead, Sente tried to take a pawn to drop to 6-6 somehow and push the pawn. And the bishop protected the 5-5 square. Since this move was a very good counterattack, maybe Sente did too much, and it was better to just play slowly like this and just advance the pawn, and not hurrying to get one pawn, but try to get it later. I think it was better. Or pawn push here before the actual game's attack was also good, I think. So here Sente wants to push this pawn normally, but the rook can take and it will be the rook exchange and Gote's castle is stronger. Sente can't push this pawn here. So before Gote's rook is active, Sente should have pushed the pawn here. But this is a short time control, 10 minutes on this, so it was a difficult decision. Sente used 23 seconds here, so this is enough long for this time control, so it was a difficult position, and this move was good. Sente took the pawn, and Gote took with the rook. This is also a usual technique. If Sente takes the rook with the bishop, the bishop takes back, of course, and it will be a fork. And Sente dropped the pawn here. I think Sente thought that this is not a bad position between the pawn here. If the silver goes back, then Sente's silver goes up. I don't know if Sente should jump the knight or not, but for example, push the pawn here. If the pawn takes, Sente push the pawn and try to use the rook. If the bishop takes, then the bishop's diagonal has changed. So Sente could try to do something else, for example, like this. So it's natural to think that this is not a bad position for Sente, but the next move was too good. The rook goes back to 5-3. This was a very good move and it shows how strong Gote Mr. Taichi Kobayashi is. So Sente can't take the silver because of this fork. But if Sente does nothing, the silver can just come back. And Sente already used several pawns to capture the silver. If the silver can escape easily, it's an advantage for Gote. So Sente pushed the pawn, but it's a little heavy only in this timing. If Gote takes this pawn, Sente can push the pawn. This is also difficult, but better than the actual game since Sente can take one pawn. For example, like this. And since the rook isn't in 2-8 anymore, after taking the pawn, there will be no fork of king and rooks. So this is not a bad position. So, but here, Gote ignored the pawn, and this was a great move. Sente escaped the rook, but Gote escaped first the silver, and then promoted the bishop. Sente also broke the second file, so it doesn't seem so bad for Sente, but the spawn is strong. The spawn again is strong, and this horse is very severe. Mm. And since the rook is here and Gote has a lance and the pawns, uh, Gote's counterattack from the center and using their horse is much stronger than Sente's rook promotion. Even if Sente could promote the rook, it's not still easy to break Gote's castle. So now the position is clearly good for Gote. So this was a great move, this pawn push. If Sente takes, then Gote drops the pawn here. If the rook escapes, the rook can't promote anymore, and if the rook takes, then the silver will be taken. So Sente couldn't take this pawn. If the silver goes up, then it will be captured. So Sente went up to this side, but again the pawn dropped and the horse was too strong. So the only way to defend the silver is going back, but Gote could take the knight. If Sente protects, then Gote can attack like this. So Sente just promoted the rook. But this token is too strong. Hmm. So this is the only counterattack from Sente. But still, Gote's castle is solid. So now Sente is trying to use all the pieces to attack. But Gote's attack is faster. Hmm. And Sente has nothing in hand, so this attack is usually severe, but not enough in this game. Hmm. So this token is partly severe, but Gote's attack is one move fast. Hmm. And Gote just played naturally and won the game. There were also Tsumi here, maybe, but this is just safe. There's no way to attack Gote's king since it has no silver or bishop. And Gote won the game. So for a quick summary, so the middle game was very difficult. First, Sente should have waited few more moves. And this was a good counterattack this silver. But Sente played patiently. Hmm. And here it seems almost equal. Slightly better for Gote maybe, but not really bad for Sente. Hmm. But pawn push to for one and pawn push to 5-6. It seems uh, natural, and Sente is a strong player, so maybe he read until this position and he thought, but that it's not a bad position for Sente. This is only natural, but this was an excellent move here. And from here, Gote got an advantage. Maybe Sente should have played this pawn push much earlier. And ignoring this pawn is correct. And from here, Sente, I think Sente didn't have chance to reverse the position. Gote just played carefully and correctly. So in this game, Gote, Mr. Taichi Kobayashi rudobou showed many techniques of Furibisha, and yes, no big mistake in the middle game, and mm, he showed his strengths throughout this game. It was a little unlucky for Sente since this position doesn't seem so bad, so it was a little unlucky. But yes, Gote played very well. So congratulations, rudobou, for winning the Kishin Tournament Europe 2025. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.